Thank you, Chairman Murr. In your role as a member of the General Investigations Committee, did you interview any witnesses as part of the investigation of Attorney General Paxton?
As you heard during our explanation, when we learned about the request for multi-million-dollar payment of settlement back in February, the General Investigating Committee undertook the efforts to hire highly qualified, experienced attorneys and investigators to perform those interviews for us and then report that information back to the committee.
Did you interview any witnesses?
As I explained, the folks that we hired to work for the committee did the interviewing.
Did any member of the General Investigations Committee cross-examine a witness?
As I've just explained to you, we hired long, skilled, and qualified attorneys and investigators to do that work for us. And it was conducted in a very professional manner. Each of those investigations and interviews involved the attorneys for the witnesses, including the whistleblowers.
Chairman Murr, are you aware of any member of the Texas House of Representatives who was given an opportunity to interview witnesses?
So I'm gonna answer that in a broad stroke because I understand that you're trying to make a point, but what I'll tell you is this originated with the request for $3.3 million, and that started back in February when we understood that a settlement agreement had been reached by parties in that litigation.
I understand.
I'll finish. At that time, Mr. Paxton and members from his office actually appeared before an appropriations subcommittee and requested payment of funds, but declined to answer questions as to what happened in the lawsuit.
Chairman Murr, do you know whether any witnesses that spoke to the investigators hired by the committee were placed under oath?
No witnesses were placed under oath, analogous to any investigation that you would have into criminal activity. Typically, you do not see law enforcement or investigators place a victim or a witness under oath. That occurrence occurs at a trial. And as you're well aware, and we just issued a memo explaining the process of impeachment, this is not the body that does the fact-finding. The fact-finding occurs in the Senate, and the oath for any witness would occur there.
Well, Chairman Murr, you said when you came up to the dais that you've heard the facts, and I would agree, we have not heard facts yet because no facts have been established. Are you aware of any transcripts or video recordings of witness interviews conducted under the auspices of the General Investigations Committee?
Yes.
Were those witness interviews, transcripts, or video recordings ever made available to the full membership of the Texas House of Representatives?
Importantly, the transcript from the multi-hour presentation by our retained attorneys and investigators was made available on our committee website and published and printed for all the members of this body.
Were there transcripts of the investigators interviewing witnesses?
Recordings were made of each interview.
Were those recordings made available to the membership of this body?
No, those are part of the investigatory process of the General Investigating Committee.
Chairman Murr, have the members of the full House been given the opportunity to ask questions to the persons hired by the General Investigations Committee to investigate Ken Paxton?
Those questions were made by members of the committee, and I'll point out that our House rules for almost a decade have embodied the role of the General Investigating Committee to be the workhorse on investigation on behalf of the body, both in areas of concern around the state as set forth in the government code, and specifically with respect to articles of impeachment.
Chairman Murr, will any member of the Texas House as part of this proceeding be able to ask questions to the persons who investigated Ken Paxton?
Right now, today, you have the report from the committee before you, and we have done that work on behalf of the committee, pursuant to the House rules, pursuant to the government code, and so we are providing that information to you.
As part of this proceeding today, will the members of this body be presented with any witness transcripts?
We have provided a transcript of the multi-hour hearing. The video is also available to you.
Were there any witnesses that testified in that hearing you're referring to?
No, that was a hearing in which the attorneys and the investigators that were hired by the General Investigating Committee provided a detailed and fact-specific summary of all the evidence from their 15 interviews of witnesses and the culmination of reading pleadings and documents and other information that they gathered.
Chairman Murr, has any member of this body heard directly from a witness that was involved in this investigation?
I'm not advised of that because there's no restriction for any member here to reach out to any participant in the whistleblower allegations and the lawsuit. It's been going on literally for more than 2 years. So I'm not advised.
Have you made any opportunity through the auspices of your committee for the witnesses to engage with the members?
That is the purpose of the committee, but if members wanted to engage directly with that, I don't think there's any restriction, but I'm not advised if that has occurred.
So there were no restrictions, but your committee chose not to make an opportunity for the members to talk to witnesses. Is that correct?
Again, I will point out that the construction of the House rules for almost a decade, as well as the government code, establish investigating authority with the General Investigating Committee. And so that is the workhorse for your investigation purposes.
But is it not correct to say that your committee could have made witnesses available for the membership to speak with and ask questions?
So I will point out, whenever you bring that up, that let's start first with the whistleblower lawsuit. Whistleblower lawsuit involved 4 individuals who were terminated from their employment because they feel like they did the right thing. They identified what they realized was criminal wrongdoing. They went to law enforcement and reported it. They reported that to HR to some extent, but were terminated, were fired from their jobs. Now, other people that learned about that, they went ahead and resigned because they said, I can't work in that environment. All said, we learned, and you're aware, that of 15 witness interviews, all but one said that they had grave concerns for retaliation from Mr. Paxton on a professional basis, that it might affect their livelihoods, their ability to keep or get a job, similar with their spouses. So they were very concerned about that. This work, and I'll finish, this work was done with the fact that some of those folks that agreed to sit down or were subpoenaed and sat down and did interviews, did so while they said, I will certainly appear at a trial and under oath provide testimony. I am concerned about my name being out there. I am concerned about unnecessary exposure when I'm living in a world of a little fear and retaliation every day.
Chairman Murr, you and I heard the presentation by Representative Johnson. And in that presentation, she said that all roads lead to Nate Paul. Do you remember her saying that?
I heard that.
Did the committee compel any testimony from Nate Paul?
The committee began its work by reaching out to the participants in the whistleblower lawsuit, and from there went to witnesses identified by those folks. So those would be participants who were not in the whistleblower lawsuit. The committee has not reached out to Mr. Paul.
Did the committee subpoena any documents from Nate Paul?
The committee has not yet subpoenaed any documents from Nate Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.